So I guess we're at 7 o'clock. We'll welcome everyone to our council meeting for February the 22nd. And I'll call the meeting to order. First thing we need to deal with is adoption of the agenda. So we have a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the agenda for the February 22nd, 2021 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Any discussion on that agenda? Approval? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest. I have none to declare with anything on tonight's agenda. Councillor McCabe?
I do not.
Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor Burke?
No.
And Councillor Hearn?
No.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us up to our county council update. Oh, just before I turn it over to you, Campbell, anyone waiting in the meeting for the public meeting, we will be moving to a public meeting before too long to consider a planning matter at that point. And when we get to the public meeting, we'll make everyone who's registered part of the meeting to be able to interact with the rest of council and staff. So please be patient, we'll get there shortly. So with that being said, joining us tonight, Campbell Cork for his county council update, the first one in 2021. Welcome, Campbell, and all the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for taking time for the county tonight. I have three topics. I'll be brief with all three. One is the spring roadside cleanup. One is innovative ambulance phone calls and care they're doing, and just a little update on Ridewell. So first, with the spring cleanup, the province has indicated, well, it did last year, that it wanted to see a day of action for litter, but with COVID it got canceled last year. But they're hoping that on or around May 11th we'll be doing it this year. And where the county is kind of getting involved with this is that it's going to support any municipalities that are organizing, say, a roadside cleanup, and the county will be waiving the tipping fees for any waste collected, and it'll also be providing other resources. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe trucks or whatever, but at least it's the tipping fees are done. And to do with the ambulance, these are both, I think, really interesting projects where the Wellington paramedic service is reaching out to the community, not with ambulances, but with telephone calls and emails and personal visits. They're, one of the things they're doing is monitoring folks that have COVID-19 but are at home. And they're particularly focusing on, say, patients who are elderly or maybe handicapped, who are at risk of not doing so well at home. And the service is typically now assisting about 15 to 30 patients at any one time. And a little closer to home maybe is they did get involved with the Arthur long-term care facility that suffered such a major outbreak, and they monitored by phone, and visits were required. And kind of along similar lines, a new project began just this past December involving paramedics monitoring people in the community who are waiting for long-term care, to be admitted to a long-term care facility, but they can be in delicate state as they wait. So the paramedics are monitoring them with home visits and phone calls and follow-ups, and using even, email and other technology to stay in touch with them. And that community paramedic service was working out of, and I guess Chris could tell if it still is, the Harriston Fire Hall. So thanks to the support of the Minto Fire Department, that was able to happen. And the current funding for this runs out March the 31st, but the ambulance service, paramedic service, they have applied to the province. So I'm certainly hopeful that that will continue on. And finally, the Ride Well, that's the county's Uber-like taxi service, for lack of a better. This past December, despite COVID, it hit the highest number so far for a month, 272 rides. That slid a little bit in January with the lockdown. They dropped off by about 50, but they're hoping it'll pick up again. It's running weekdays 6 to in the morning to 7 at night. Personally, I'm really excited about RideWell, particularly when it comes to larger businesses, factories, you know, that are in Palmerston or Arthur or Mount Forest, and people that aren't living close enough to walk or ride a bicycle. It means they're going to need another car. And to me, RideWell is a real potential for saving a family from buying a second car. Having said that, a survey of the 32 of the larger businesses, plus I think 115 or so employees, didn't show a whole great deal of interest in the service, but it's still early, and the county's economic development is still going to work on other ways that it could be useful to these employers as a real incentive for getting employees. And finally, they call it GOST, G-O-S-T, the Guelph Owen Sound Transit, that runs up and down Highway 6 from Owen Sound to Guelph twice a day in each direction. It started last October, and so far, it's not like a booming business, but 213 rides isn't bad considering what all's been going on. And they're not into full swing of promoting it, and the county's going to help them promote it once it's really ready to take that on, and maybe COVID lets up a little bit. One just interesting fact was that of the stops in Wellington County, Mount Forest and close behind Arthur were the two most popular spots. And I'm unable to tell you why that is, but I'm glad to see that our people are taking advantage of it. And if I might just say, to do with COVID, there is on the Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph Public Health does have a link on their website for people over 80 who are wanting to register for COVID shots. And it's fairly simple to get to it. It's just register.wdg, like Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph, wdgpublichealth.ca, and you're in and you're away and you can register. Thank you very much for your time. That is my county report.
Okay.
Take any questions.
Thanks, Campbell. Any questions for Campbell this evening?
Come on, Steve. You always have a question.
No, I'm good today, Campbell.
Great. Okay.
So I guess I kind of have a comment as well, or half question, half comment, Campbell, and that is with regard to the RideWell. That was a pilot project that the province has funded, and I guess we will be working to try to make sure the province continues that funding past COVID, so that we get a real picture of what this can look like, and as opposed to the circumstances we've been operating in for the past 11 months. So I imagine we will be speaking with our provincial counterparts to make sure that program extends beyond the current time frame.
Right. Yes, I certainly hope so, because I think this kind of a thing does take time for people to make habits and start using it. I'm looking forward to using it. That's great.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thanks very much, Campbell, for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation from Wellington North Fire Service, our 2020 annual report. Chris, are you the one delivering this report?
Yes, I will do the talking, but I'm also going to be assisted by Marco and Khalees are on here to kind of reintroduce you to the management team and introduce you to Khalees because she's back off maternity leave and kind of go from there from what's contained in the report. So, and answer any questions
Great.
you have. So we'll be as brief as we can. We just thought it would be good to start off the year with a good update of what happened last year. So Karen, if you could see, you're way faster than I would have been getting that on there, Karen. Excellent, thank you. So yeah, this is just our annual report for 2020. Next slide. The highlights that we're gonna do, as you can see there, is some demographics and then just some information about our calls, and then some of our departments with prevention, public education training, and then some stuff about next year. Next slide. Here's our statement that we talk about, and I won't read it to you because I'm sure you're familiar with it, but this is definitely our mission statement that we live by. And one of the things we'll be doing when we come back to you with a report on the master fire plan that we're proposing is we'll go back and review this with the firefighters and make sure that it's still relevant, and of course yourselves, and go from there and see if that helps, if we needed to make any changes or update it at all. Next slide. And values. These are values that we, as a fire department go by, and again, we'll be reviewing those in the master fire plan to make sure that they're still relevant and still what the fire department feels is what we strive to do as a department. Next slide. So just an overview. This is the new management team that we have for the last half of 2020 and now into 2021. Yeah, it's just, everybody, and you'll meet Khalees in a second. She'll talk about some of the things that she's doing. But there's our new management team. Next slide. So just in a quick overview, we do have 3 district chiefs, 8 captains, and over 40 volunteers for staff. And as you can see on the side, is refresher, we did have 8 new recruits, 4 for each station, going on to the recruit program when we get back up and running after COVID relaxes a wee bit. And then there's some of the promotions that we had at the different stations in the last half of 2020. Next slide. We did form some committees at the end of 2020 to help us kind of advise us and to get more firefighter buy-in and responsibility and more input from them. There's a training committee that we meet to write the calendar for the year, and they help deploy the training at each of the stations. So it's not just up to one person or the district chief. There's different people involved so that we can pull on different people's expertises to help us put the training together. We have a health and safety committee now that meets once a month right now, and they're going to go to 3 times a month, but they do the monthly inspections. And then someone from the management team meets with the corporate health and safety group to bring a report from the fire aspect so that it closes that loop so that the municipality has fire involvement in the health and safety. And then we also have an equipment committee now that helps us with some of the larger purchases, gets their input, to get questions from the firefighters and the committee, and they kind of do some research into some of our larger equipment purchases, which is working very well too. Next slide. There's our incident statistics. As you can see, one of the things to note here as a fire department is we're fairly well balanced. A lot of fire departments are very heavy on the medical side of things. Our department is very balanced in the amount of, we do fires, the same amount of fires as almost as MVCs, as medicals, as alarms. Like, it's a very diversified call volume, which is kind of helps keep things interesting. And we're not heavily saying, we're going to 70% of our calls are medical. They're pretty even across the board. So that's fairly unique to departments. Usually you see a lot of departments are heavy on the medical side of things. Our hope is with fire prevention and public education is our goal is to get the fire part of it a little bit smaller, because we'd like the fire part smaller. So that means that losses and dollar losses in our community is not as large. Next slide. And then it gives you a kind of a trend that you can see from 2017 across where our calls, and they peaked in 2018, and definitely across the board with all fire departments that I've talked to across the county and other counties, the call volumes were trended down last year. COVID, people were staying home, they weren't traveling as much, and I'm happy to report that they were safer at home, and not people learned how to cook and not how to cook badly. So they did well, and hopefully this keeps going and our call volumes keep trending down. Next slide. There's fire prevention and enforcement. So there's some of the things. This was obviously hampered with COVID as well, and that's going to be the theme of the rest of the slides, is things was hampered by COVID. We didn't do as many inspections and enforcement, and because just didn't have the ability to go into a lot of places because of COVID, you know, whether it was for our personnel safety or for other places' safety. But we still are going on complaint request and completing that, and Marco's staying on top of that and keeping up all of our records and any complaints that come forward. Next slide. Public education. So all of our in-person activities were pretty much canceled last year due to the pandemic. As you know, we did launch our new social media programs. And an interesting fact with that is, I think 7 of the 8 recruits that we hired all said that they saw our ads on social media, and that's what caused them to apply. So it just showed to us that it was working, and it is working really well. And we did have a contest at the end of the year through social media to help keep engaged with the residents during the pandemic. Recently, with that recent incident we had on County Road 14, I think we gained like 50 followers that night. So we're getting there, and we're getting in touch with the community that way, which is good. It's not going to be sole way we're going to do it. We're going to keep doing in-person stuff once we're allowed to get back at it. But it's definitely been a huge asset to us. Next slide. Training, a lot of credit goes to the firefighters for training. We bounced all over the place because of COVID. We were in person, and then we were online, and then we went back to some in person, and then right now we're back online, coming back out of it in March to go back to in person. The firefighters adapted really well and really jumped on the online training without too many issues, which I'm very proud to say. We covered quite a few subjects. We did manage to get at the beginning of the year, we've got some courses that we can run locally now due to the partnership with Minto. So we did a fire officer course and a pumper operations course, which was split 6 and 6 with Minto and Wellington North. So the fire marshal's office usually it was per department, but because of the partnership and the paperwork I was able to send them, they let us do it together so that we could get people from both departments trained. So we definitely look at enhancing that this year with, I think we have 4 or 5 courses planned for this year to keep the training up to date. Next slide. And then just a quick review of the projects. We completed the updated risk assessment, which council saw, social media policy, which you saw, and recruitment. And overall, the 8 that you did, but prior to the 8, we did bring on 2 firefighters to the Arthur station before that. So we actually had a total of 10 this year that we brought on. And we'll be looking at doing some other recruiting again in 2021 to keep our numbers nice and high. Next slide. So 2021 and beyond, as you said, we're going to keep with the joint management team and keep going. We are already seeing some savings, which I'll talk about in a minute. And it's working very well, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm jaded, but the firefighters are really starting to buy in and seem to be the feedback we're getting, and is pretty excited about it. We're going to be purchasing the hydraulics, and we're migrating to the Wellington County radio system. As I mentioned, the master fire plan, which the report will be coming to you soon. This is a big one, is implementation of emergency reporting software. So we're getting the software implemented that will be able to keep some really good data on equipment maintenance, call volumes, and that type of stuff. Right now, we keep a lot of records on paper, and a lot of it just sending forms into the fire marshal's office. This emergency reporting software will be able to capture a lot more data, which we'll be able to report to council, especially on the maintenance side of things. And that's one of the areas that Marco's heading up is our maintenance programs for both departments. So more to come on that. And then we also need to start looking at a plan for the future of the Mount Forest Fire Hall. There is some stuff that's starting to fail at the fire hall and stuff that we've been doing an assessment on, which we will come to council later, but we do need to look at our future plans for that fire hall. because we are starting to bust at the seams a little bit inside there. Next slide. So we just want to quickly give you a management team overview of the responsibilities of each person. And I'll give you an overview of what each person's kind of taken on. And then I'll throw it to them if Marco or Cleese want to say anything, and then we'll take your questions. So next slide. So my title is Director of Fire Services. I just oversee the other department and work closely with both deputies to make sure that we're all on the same page. I do the liaison with both CAOs, the councils, other municipal committees, and I should have put in there other fire departments, talking to our neighbors and making sure that, we're living up to our agreements and that type of stuff. Policies and procedures, I oversee the training program, attend the major incidents like I have over the summer and last week, and then the emergency manager back up to the CAO to help with that type of thing. Next slide. Marco's portfolio, what he's doing is fire prevention and logistics, we're calling it. So he's overseeing the equipment maintenance and repairs at both departments. And already some of the stuff he's been able to align, we've been able to save quite a few $1,000s in just a couple of projects, because we're being able to order more in bulk. An example is we have to do some repairs to 3 tankers, just getting some aluminum lids put on them. And we saved over $2,000 in material because of being able to bulk it all together. So that's just one example of everything the good work that he's doing there. And then he's working with the equipment committees to put in new maintenance plans and getting maintenance people to come up one time instead of having to come up twice. We're saving on travel time and that type of stuff. So that's working well. And then he's doing the fire prevention side of it too, to deal with the complaint requests and fire inspections and deal with the burn complaints. And then he also responds to any major incidents that anybody from senior management needs to attend to. And he's taken on the health and safety committee. Next slide. And then Cleese's role is administration and organizational performance. So what we mean is all information processes related to the fire department data. What our goal is to get more data out to both councils to show how we're responding, time of day, people hours, equipment, all that type of stuff. And then working on the human resource part of it, the stuff that like Chanda takes care of the bulk of the municipal side stuff, but then there's a bunch of things that we need. Medicals being completed, CPR being completed, that type of thing. She's overseeing the critical incident stress program and peer support teams, which is key because with Marco and I being front lines in the incidents, we're what they call compromised. We're involved in the incident, so we can't necessarily take the critical incident stress part. Cleese overseeing that, then she can oversee the program and being able to get people there to debrief, diffuse teams after severe incidents or whenever we need to. So that's it. She's overseeing the public education and getting into community partnerships, which we found over the 10 years in Minto is key. If we can get some community partnerships, we can really work well with the community and work to buy stuff and help purchase some equipment that we need that the community would also benefit the community. And then a couple other things. And she's going to be the key in the implementation of the budget and the master fire plan because of her business background. We look at it a little bit differently than a lot of departments. We take the fire department as a business, and we're trying to run it as a business to look at data and financial stuff and in ways that we can create partnerships to help us save money and also create more funding coming into the fire department. Next slide. So that's it. I'm going to flip it over to Marco. Do you have anything to add? You guys want me to present that part? Marco, do you have anything to add on your?
The only thing I want to add is this is pretty fun and challenging. It's like it is fun actually, like trying to get the best bang for a buck. And now that Cleese is on board, she's keeping us in line and on the narrow path. So it's really good. It's exciting times.
Thanks. Cleese, you got anything to add about and introduce yourself to the council?
Hi, I'm just happy to see you guys virtual face-to-face, and hopefully I can serve the community well. I don't have a lot to say, just happy to be here, grateful for the opportunity, and it's definitely challenging keeping Marco and Chris in line, I can tell you that. So.
We had a 6-month head start before she came off mat leave, so we were we took a while to probably rein in. But yeah, we'll entertain any questions, and I appreciate council's time tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Chris, Marco, and Khalees. Any questions from council for this team? Steve?
Thanks for that, Chris, and through you, Mayor, and thanks, Marco and Khalees. Good to see you all here in this meeting, and thanks for the in-depth report of what you see coming down the pipeline and everything. I guess my one question is that kind of caught my eye was we're migrating to the Wellington County radio system. What were we on before?
We were on a private radio system that was designed for originally Wellington, North, and Minto, and then Minto went to the county radio system where Public Works and all the other fire departments in the county are on,
Right.
which is it's a digital platform. So we're the last department, Public Works and fire-wise, to get onto that county system. So it'll be a digital system that will enhance our communications abilities and enable us to talk to Guelph Dispatch, and we could talk to Puslinch, not that we would ever have to, but communication-wise throughout the county. Where it really paid off was during the flooding of 2017, was being able to talk directly to Public Works on radios about, you know, where we need sand, where we need barricades, all that kind of thing. So it just really helps interoperability within the county. We're still going to have the ability to talk to our mutual aid partners in Grey County and Bruce County and Dufferin County. That's not going to change, but it'll enhance our ability to communicate within the county for sure.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it seems to make sense to be, well, we're in Wellington County. It seems to make sense to be all on one system with Public Works. And yeah, it's probably, like you said, paid off during the flood of 2017. And I mean, just last Monday, it probably paid off getting the Dundalk pumper trucks down as well. So nice to see that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. They're not busting down the doors here, I don't think, to ask questions. So with that, just a question for you, Karen, before we wrap this up. Do we need a motion to receive this report?
You can pass one, but it's not necessary. You
Okay.
receive your report because it's on the agenda.
Okay. I don't think I have any questions. Thank you for the thorough report, and thank you all for taking the time to come and spend some time with us in this virtual format that we're gradually getting used to, I guess. We're looking forward to the days ahead when we can meet in person, so, and shake hands and you know, tell stories and enjoy ourselves in a more social way. So again, thank you all for joining us this evening, and thanks for sharing that report. Look forward to hearing more about what's coming down the pipe with the master plan and some of the other initiatives that you're working on. So thanks very much, and thanks for the work you do for our community. Okay, so I guess that brings us to when we recess for our public meeting. So I've got a recommendation here to recess the council meeting, moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the February 22nd, 2021 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act, and the application is for Harvey and Catherine Martin zoning bylaw amendment. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're recessed from the council meeting. And with that said, I'll switch agendas here and we'll move to the public meeting. And I will call the public meeting to order. And we'll go through the disclosure of pecuniary interest with regard to this agenda this evening. So again, I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor Yates?
Nope.
And Councillor McCabe?
Done.
Okay, thank you. The owner applicant in this such case is Harvey and Catherine Martin. A location of the subject land. The land subject to the proposed amendment is described as Part Lot 7, Concession 9, Registered Plan 834-349102, with a civic address of 8330 Line 8, Kenilworth. The property is 39.7 hectares. Purpose and effect of the application. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the property to permit a commercial licensed mechanic shop to operate in the existing 772 square meter accessory structure. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. Excuse me. How was notice given for this meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as mailed to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on January 29, 2021. I would just like to note that I have moved Mr. Martin and Mr. Seaton into the meeting as panelists.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move next to the presentation. Linda, are you giving the update on this one this evening?
Good evening, Mayor. Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Michelle Innocente, this was one of her last reports that she did. So I'm here to present her report and answer any questions. But essentially, just to highlight some of the points, the proposed property is zoned agriculture and it's located in the prime agricultural area. The location of this business is on the actual farm. And I just want to point out that the PS policies for these types of uses fall under one of two things. It's either considered a secondary agricultural use or an on-farm diversified use. So in this instance, we can't consider it a secondary agricultural use because it's not a use that's primarily for the agricultural community. It's not catering to that community. That's generally what those uses would be for. The on-farm diversified uses allow a more broader range of uses that aren't necessarily farm related. In this case, we don't feel that it meets that criteria either. However, having said that, we do recognize that there's some question as to what exactly the use is going to be. So there needs to be some clarification on that. All we know is it's truck repair or vehicle repair, which generally isn't something we would see in the prime ag area. The guidelines for permitted uses in prime agricultural areas for both secondary agricultural as well as on-farm diversify specifically state that a trucking facility or a facility that has trucking operations on it is not something that would be considered under either one of those categories. So I guess our concern that it looks like it potentially has that potential to be a trucking type of operation. And that would be contrary to the policies. So at this point in time, we aren't supportive of this type of use in the prime ag area. However, there is some outstanding information that we would require if we wanted to move forward with it, or if council wanted to move forward with it. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Nothing other than what is listed on the agenda, which is from the Grand River Conservation Authority, and they have no objections.
Okay. So with regard to this decision, there was no bylaw prepared for this evening's meeting because staff were not recommending approving this. If council wishes to move ahead with this application, we would have to request the bylaw to a future meeting, and then notice would be, anyone wishing notice of that passing of that bylaw would need to request it in writing with our clerk. Okay. With that said, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. First, let's just see here. If Harvey is on the line, maybe I'll give him a first crack at it if you want to explain in a bit more detail what his plans are. Harvey, are you with us?
I think he's on mute, Mayor.
Okay. Harvey, are you with us? We can't hear you.
I've asked him to unmute, so he might just be.
No.
Am I coming through there now?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay. So good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
So yeah, I am putting this proposal out here for trying to, it seems like we kind of have a little bit of a roadblock. I mean, we can operate the way we are, but it's gonna definitely is holding us back. And yeah, I'm proud that Saugeen Agri has been in business in Wellington North for 19 years now. And we've done some changes of what we are doing from back in 2002 when we started from doing agricultural manures, and now have incorporated doing some quite a bit of biosolids and digester waste. And now we are with the shop here doing agricultural work. We are doing all our own work. We're not bringing outside work in or anything like that. We are focused on keeping our own equipment safe. And I do have a licensed truck mechanic here, a 310T mechanic truck and coach that every 2 weeks our own equipment goes over. If it's farm tractors, manure spreaders, my highway trucks, to keep the equipment safe on the roads is very important to me. And this is where we have run against a little bit is our safeties. We need to, every year we need to do a safety on our machines. And so far, without the MTO license on the shop, we cannot perform my mechanic cannot perform those safeties. So we are looking at doing the rezoning so that my mechanic can insert his number into the MTO licensing to get that, get the shop licensed. We have all the tools here that we need to do it. We have the manpower, but we still need the certificate. And that is why we've come to you guys tonight and are proposing what we are looking to keep moving forward, that we can be here for the community. We employ 13 people here, and Dan Yakes knows well what we do, and in the manure business, working for some of your towns, we look after biosolids and that, and also have come to the floodings. We were involved as well there in Arthur to suck some sewage lines out and helping with that kind of stuff. So we're local. We're just here not far from Kenilworth, and we're proud to be here, but we are at a roadblock in our business that I feel, and as a company and our managers feel, we should try to get that all in-house. And another thing that we are seeing a lot is we get setback working with another company. We have our own truck mechanics here. We can do all the work in-house, and he is licensed to do it, but my shop isn't, so we still have to send the equipment out to another shop. And right in this area, we don't have any, may I say, real good truck mechanic shops that I want to go or deal with. So we are looking at going into Hanover or Stainer or down to Amara for these machines to get their yellow safety stickers, and then we got a schedule with them, and it puts downtime on our trucks so we could keep them on the roads more if we could get this zoning approved. So yeah, with that, yeah, I don't have much more to say. If you have got more questions or if I wasn't clear enough, I will gladly explain some more.
Okay, thanks, Harv. And Karen, did you have anyone else registered for this, to speak at this public meeting?
I didn't have anyone registered, but my understanding is Chris Seaton is the agent for the applicant. Is that correct, Mr. Martin?
And so Chris Seaton is my biosolid manager, and he looks after a lot, like all our farms that sewage and sludge goes on. He looks after a lot of the farm license paperwork stuff, gets into this kind of stuff. It gets tossed on his plate. So yes, he is, when it goes beyond my head, then it goes on his plate. I guess I'll say it that way. So yeah, Chris is with us, and I'm sure he'd love to talk tonight.
Okay, Chris, welcome. Did you have anything you wanted to add at this point?
I think, first of all, hello. No, I don't have anything to add from what Harvey explained it very well. But if there are any questions that anyone has, I don't mind trying to answer those unless Harvey wants to answer those.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Members of council, any questions or comments at this point? Steve, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. Linda, I guess I have a quick question for you, and welcome. Good evening. You said there was some outstanding information regarding this. What would that information be?
Well, there's two things. So the first thing, I guess, is clarification on exactly what vehicles are going to be utilizing this inspection station. If I'm hearing now that it's only going to be their own personal vehicles that of the business that's on that property now, which is different. The licensing that they're seeking would allow them to do inspections on any vehicle anywhere. So there's a bit of difference there. The other thing is, if we are to consider it a non-farm diversified use, then there's a number of criteria that we have to look at. This, the area that the business is taking over, like the size, the employees, the size of the building, like all that information we would have to include or look at as part of that proposal, which we don't have.
Okay. Again, sorry, to follow up. Thanks, Andy. To follow up, when would we be able to get that kind of information? Because I hate when I hear their businesses are being held up and stuff like Harvey has mentioned. And I'm all right with this if it's strictly just their own equipment. I don't want a parade of heavy equipment going down the 8th line into their shop. But if we can help remove some roadblocks and make sure again that it is their own equipment that they're servicing, so they don't have to go to Hanover or Stainer or Elmira or wherever he said. I think that'd be great. But yeah, what kind of a timeline would we be working with, Linda?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're asking me.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking to the landowner, Mr. Martin. You can, as soon as he gets it to us, we can, whatever we need, we would let him know right away, and then we could draft a bylaw.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
I'm sure we can, if we know what information you're looking for, Linda, Chris would be happy to work with you in the next few days here. I'm not sure in his schedule totally, but to get stuff to you, what you need to make things happen to keep moving forward.
Yeah, so I think we'd want to sit with Darren as well, and just look at the way we'd have to figure out how to draft the zoning bylaw to ensure that whatever council wants to see here can happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dan, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of in agreement with Councillor McCabe, is that, we have a successful agricultural business here in our community. They do work right within, a lot of work within our community. And I think we need to do the best we can to try to make this work. And if there's information that's missing that Linda and Mr. Martin can get together and get it worked out, then I think we need to do the best we can to try to make this work.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Certainly they provide an essential service to the agricultural community, and it doesn't sound like a whole lot is actually physically going to change there. I'm just wondering, like, when we draft that bylaw, is there any way to restrict it, to put something in there that states that they can only do this to their own equipment? I don't know
Okay.
who that question is for.
Well, I see Darren pops up, and I'm not sure whether he wants to answer the question or whether Linda wants to answer the question, but I'll let whoever wants to answer the question have a go at it.
I'll maybe take a crack at it, Mr. Mayor, and then Linda can chime in afterwards. The way the MTO licensing works is it's either a yes or a no on the forms that the township needs to fill out. So they don't restrict to who owns the vehicles. The tricky part then with staff drafting the bylaw will be how to word it, that it is what council's wishes are, and then enforcement is very difficult. We can pass a bylaw, but enforcement is very difficult. It can be done, but that's all I had to say on that.
Okay. Anything you want to add at this point, Linda?
No, I was going to say exactly what Darren said.
Okay.
It would be his job, so I think he has more at stake here.
Okay. Mike, did you want to add something right at the moment?
Yeah, just quickly a comment. I think we've heard from Mr. Martin that what the intent is, and that's good, and that there probably won't be significant changes on the property from what is operating now. To a certain degree, it's a leap of faith for this council, because I think what Darren is saying is we can't be overly restrictive in the zoning bylaw to allow the MTO part to be addressed. So council's going to have to a certain degree, understand Mr. Martin's business and what his intent is with getting the MTO inspections allowed on site is for his own business. He's not looking to commercialize that part of the business. So there will be a bit of a leap of faith that that's the direction council wants to go.
Okay. And I just got a little follow-up question for you, Linda. And there's, the way I understood from your presentation, there's really two categories this could fall into. And given the nature of the business, in that their business is applying nutrients to agricultural land, does this not also fit within the ag-related side of the option, as well as the diversified, and I probably don't have the terms right, but the diversified uses?
So that their business, their agricultural business, the biosolids and the digester and all that, that is 100% an agricultural use. That's not an issue. The vehicle repairs and that component that this licensing will give them permission to do on their property, that's the issue. Okay. If they're
okay
to their own vehicles, then it's related. But as Darren said, we can't. It's hard to control that.
Okay. And then the other item in the report that I was looking at was and I probably don't have the terminology right, but the 5 tests or whatever, the 5 items for consideration. And the one that was outstanding was with regard to the impact on agricultural operations.
Right.
And so what I'm just trying to understand the concern there based on this application.
Well, I think the issue with that is the use, and the agricultural policies are there to support agricultural uses and uses that support agricultural. So when you introduce uses that don't do that, then the compatibility problem comes in. But the other side of it is also the size and scale. So certain non-agricultural uses are allowed under the on-farm diversified, but they're limited in size and scale, and the type. So when you have a use that's generating a considerable amount of traffic, or it's a use that's not compatible. There's different. There's it's hard to get into it, but the on-farm diversified is generally considered secondary to farming, so it's usually smaller in scale.
Okay. So I guess in terms of the scale, if we're rezoning the existing building and just some parking area, any further expansion of that would have to come back for further rezoning, would it not?
I would think so, yes, for sure.
So in a sense, by capturing the existing structure and the limited parking area around it, we are limiting it in scope just by doing that.
Potentially, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Dan?
I want to just go back quickly to the term that Mike used about the leap of faith. I think there's times when we need to do that. We need to, in our own hearts and minds, we know that this is probably the right thing to do. We're being held up here by some, paperwork whatsoever. I think Mr. Martin is busy enough that all he's going to be working on is his own trucks. He's not going to be lining cars and trucks up out his tractors out his driveway. So I think that leap of faith term is a key element to this whole zoning request.
Okay, so any other questions or comments at this point? If council wishes to have staff draft a bylaw, then we need to give them that indication at this point, so that a bylaw could come back to a future meeting and we could get on with this. So I'm hearing Councillor Yates saying yes. I think he's saying yes.
Yes.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Yes, I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. Steve?
We need a motion to move that ahead, or?
I don't think we do, but I see Karen has her hand up, so I'll let her speak.
Once you receive consensus, the consensus I think needs to be that planning and building receive additional information from the applicant and are satisfied with that, at which point a bylaw be brought back. Is Linda, would that be Darren? I mean, I don't think you want to bring a bylaw back without the additional information that the planners need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to me that was assumed, but thanks for pointing it out, Karen.
So we'll put that in the direction.
Okay.
Okay.
Sherry or Lisa, do you have any concerns, thoughts? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I have the same concern that Councillor Hearn had about the inspection station and how maybe we could limit that, but we've already had that discussion. So yeah, I'd like to see it come back and see where we sort of go from there. I can appreciate that Mr. Martin is busy, but yeah, I'd like to see the rest of the information.
Okay. Lisa?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
You already spoke, so I think I'm good.
Okay, sorry. Karen, did you have something further?
So I just want to clarify, the direction is that on submission by the applicant of additional information to satisfy the planning and building department, that a bylaw be brought to a future meeting of council, that a zoning bylaw, a zoning bylaw amendment be brought to a future meeting of council.
Okay, I think
Linda,
that's
Linda, Darren, is that Would that satisfy you?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay. Steve, go ahead.
I guess just in the interest of time and hopefully not holding up Soggy Niagara Services, what kind of a turnaround time could we get on this? Like, would it come to the next meeting of council in March, or?
I think I think it's dependent on how soon the applicant gets the information in and if it
Okay.
satisfies the planning and building department, but I'll go on mute right now.
Hi, this is Chris Seddon again. I can collaborate this week on that if that can work.
Okay, thank you. Darren, did I see your hand up?
Yes. Now that we have direction from council, we can move along fairly quickly on this to bring it to a resolution. There's no specified timelines for bringing the bylaw back that limits when we can bring it back. So hopefully that helps.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we wrap this up for tonight? So just to be clear as to what the process will be going forward, staff and the applicant will get together and make sure all the necessary information is submitted. Then staff will bring a bylaw amendment back to a future meeting. We aren't required to do another public meeting. We would just pass that bylaw amendment at our next meeting or whenever that information is available. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Darren?
that's correct. Yep.
Okay, Darren, thank you. All right. That said, I guess we'll move to adjournment. And I'm gonna, the recommendation here moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the public meeting of February 22nd, 2021 be adjourned at 7:57 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So the public meeting is adjourned. We'll switch back to our regular council meeting agenda and resume that. So I have a recommendation here moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the February 22nd, 2021 regular meeting of council at 7:57 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And then we'll move on to adopting the minutes of the council and public meeting of February 8th. Yeah, moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on February 8th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We don't have any business arising from previous meetings, so we're on to items for consideration. So let's go through our list and pull out those items we want to have further discussion on. Steve, go ahead.
I would like 4A. That's with regards to ATAL.
I think that's 4B.
Sorry, 4B. Yes, you're right. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, 4B.
We can do 4A too if you like.
I'm good with 4B. 5C, and that's council remuneration.
Okay.
7B, just regarding the Side Road 15. And then 8A with Caldwell Court.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have any others? Sherry, go ahead.
1B.
Okay.
And I think that's all.
Okay. Anybody have another one? Or other ones?
Oh, I do have another one.
Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
6A,
6A, that's the fire hall sign.
yes.
Okay. And I'm going to request 9A as well. Okay, I'll just do a quick recap. So far, we've got 1B, that's the Mount Forest DIA. 4B, which is the ATEL Networks, Universal Broadband Fund. 5C, council remuneration. I'm also going to request 5D, which is the DC study contract award. 6A, the Arthur Fire Hall sign. 7B, the opening of a portion of Side Road 15. 8A, the naming of the street. And 9A, the roads master action plan, county roads master action plan. Any others anyone would like to see pulled out? Dan or Lisa, you have any others?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So then let's deal with all the others. Okay, so I have a recommendation here, moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that all items listed under items for consideration on the February 22nd, 2021 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to 1B. This is in regard to the Mount Forest DIA. So we have a recommendation here, moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Mount Forest Business Improvement Association meeting held on February 9th, 2021. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Sherry, go ahead.
So I just wanted to update council a little bit on the meeting that happened on February the 9th. Although I wasn't able to attend, the meeting that they had was really well, went really well. They've got a lot going on, and they've got champions for a lot of the projects that they're going to move forward with in 2021 and beyond. One of the projects that they're moving forward with is also from a recommendation from the Main Street Revitalization, which is the window clings. They're really close on some designs, and that will sort of make some of the empty storefronts a little bit more appealing. So they're still working on some designs there. And they are most likely to submit a request for a crosswalk at King and Main. They're still working on some of the details on that. And they are also looking at making the downtown a little bit more inviting through a parkette located beside the BMO Bank of Montreal. There's that sort of grassy area there. So they're looking at putting benches or tables or things just sort of as a resting area. So I just wanted to bring some of those items to council's attention. More importantly, probably the crosswalk that they'll be looking for support on in the future.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Have they looked at any kind of design or concept around the crosswalk item? Sherry, do you know?
At this point, no. I think it's really in the preliminary stages. There's been some discussion, just because it is, there aren't traffic lights there. It is a really busy corner with the banks and things like that. And it is hard to see once the street does have vehicles there. So no design, just some discussion, and there's been a bunch of emails flying back and forth. So at this point, no.
Okay. So do they have a proposed timeline in mind that's been discussed at this stage?
No, as I said, right now, it's sort of one of those projects that they'd like to see. It's in the very preliminary stages. It wasn't, from what I understand, it wasn't one of those projects that was given sort of a champion at the meeting, but it is something that's sort of, I don't want to say on the back burner, but it's top of mind. But there's still lots of work to be done on it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to ask Councillor Berg, and you may not know, but so this has kind of been an ongoing issue, crosswalks, for a number of years. So how should the township get involved? Have they been involved at all in any discussions in this regard? I mean, this is, again, it's been going on for a long time, and I want to make sure that if the township needs to be involved here, that the right department or the right staff are on board to help make this work.
Okay, I see Dale popped up, so I'll go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. So there actually is a formal process and procedure that the operations group have when someone wants to consider a crosswalk or a curb extension or that. So that has been provided to the BIA. Bill Nelson, who's a director on the BIA, is actually the one that's going to champion the request. So we've asked them to provide us with that formal request through that process, which would then get reviewed by staff, and we would work it through, and then eventually it would come to council for consideration. So as Councillor Burke had indicated, they're really back at the stage. I don't think they even have consensus from a BIA perspective yet that this is something they want to do. But as Councillor Burke said, it's on the table. They've raised it. We may see something come through at a point in time down the road.
Okay, thanks, Dale. Dan, go ahead.
Dale, is the MTO involved in this at all? Like, this is what we've heard in the past, is that we haven't been able to look at crosswalks or you know, because of MTO issues.
So speaking from a totally uninformed perspective, I would treat it similar to what we're doing in Arthur. We probably cannot put a crosswalk in there, but we may be able to look at a pedestrian calming sort of device, which could be a curb extension. But again, the BIA, we've indicated to them through Councillor Burke that they need to raise this formally with the township if this is something that they formally want us to look at. And again, they're just trying to work that through. Matt, do you have something that it's really your policy on this one that I shared with them?
Yep, no. And through you, Mayor Lennox, if I have the floor.
Sure.
In late 2019, we looked at Smith and Conestoga and King and Maine. And when we looked at it, Smith and Conestoga met the warrants as far as, you know, something that probably the MTO would endorse, and Maine and King didn't. So, but that's something, to Dale's point, we could put bump outs. There's things we could do there. That's not, you know, we have flexibility as far as that's our road. And if we're not, as long as we're not impeding or controlling traffic, I think as a courtesy, we let MTO comment on it. But when we did look at it at that time, that was kind of what the results were. And that went through council.
Okay. So I think there's a number of options that can be looked at from, you know, on one end of the spectrum, a signalized intersection, which is not likely going to happen in this location, all the way down to, you know, a crosswalk, to curb extensions, to painting, crossing, hatching on the intersection. So there's a number of options that could be considered. And yes, when we run it through the process, I'm sure MTO consultation will be a part of that process. Does that answer your question, Dan? I know it's not
Oh, I
super
know.
clear.
I know it's in the very preliminary stages of this whole process, but you know, we've talked about pedestrian safety here for years, and you know, I think here's a perfect opportunity to, you know, put our money where our mouth is. So I think we really need to help endorse and work with the BIA to make something happen.
Yeah, I know during my summer holiday travels, I happened to travel to a couple of towns in Eastern Ontario where they had main streets that were provincial highways. And in two of the towns that I noticed, they had created a crosswalk that wasn't a crosswalk, if I may put it that way. It was a crossing location that had been painted on with colors, and they actually put up signage that said that it was a courtesy crossing, which I found interesting, fascinating. So it's not a formal crosswalk, but it's still on a provincial highway, just like we're dealing with. And I was actually surprised when I was there and witnessed it, the number of motorists who were very courteous and slowed down and stopped and allowed pedestrians to cross. So those are interesting ideas that have been done elsewhere as well that maybe we can consider.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, so I think we'll be waiting for BIA to follow up and waiting for staff to get involved in that process to see what we can implement in that location or alternative locations to meet the needs for the downtown area. So, okay, with nothing further, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Bear with me for a minute here.
I think we're at 4B.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, my paper's got all jumbled up on me here. Okay, so 4B is what we're at to next. And I'll read the recommendation. Moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report EDO 2021-007, being a report on the Universal Broadband Fund, and further that Council support ATEL Networks application to the Universal Broadband Fund in an effort to bring fiber optic internet service to Caen, Damascus, Riverston, as well as most of the rural community around these areas. And further, the council authorized the mayor and CAO to sign and provide a letter of support to ATEL Networks to accompany their funding application. With that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Go ahead, Steve.
Not that it needs to be said, but I think this is some of the most welcome news I've heard in quite a while, especially when it comes to internet in the rural areas. This is going to be fantastic for you know, as more and more people work from home. The virtual meetings that we've all had to probably go through, including meetings like this, but also for our businesses that are in the area as well that need high speed. And it's nice that ATEL is out of Holstein, which is just our neighbor to the north in Southgate, and very, very happy that this has come across our desk, and can't wait to hopefully get this going. I'm looking forward to it. I know I spoke to a number of neighbors just in my little area here, and they're pretty excited to hear that there might be a trunk running through here.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Any other questions or comments? Lisa, go ahead.
It's certainly, I hope that it all does. And I think we need to acknowledge how hard staff is actually working on this, trying to make things like this happen here in Wellington North. And I think we still need to keep plugging away at our provincial and federal partners for more money because, geez, this is very, very expensive and it doesn't cover everything, but it's certainly a good start.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I would add my own enthusiastic support to this application because it does do what we've been saying needs to be done, in that it runs fiber optic cable up and down the rural roads to give our rural residents access to that type of service. I am a little bit cautiously optimistic, if I can put it that way, in that the Universal Broadband Fund doesn't have a real strong track record for getting money out the door. So I will also be making a phone call and possibly a follow-up email to our MP to try to get the influence behind this application so that our federal counterparts they're talking a lot about funding broadband, but they need to actually get some of these projects approved and underway. So, well, I applaud the application and fully support it. I think we have to be a little bit cautious and play a wait and see and try to do what we can to encourage our federal counterparts to fund this type of application. This is exactly what in the area that it's in, this is exactly what the SWIFT 2.0 is proposing, in that we would have fiber optic cable running up and down the rural roads and meeting the needs of those rural residents. So it's a good first step, and I hope ATEL is able to be successful and get on with this project. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. That brings us to 5C. This is in regard to council remuneration. And I'm going to suggest that the rest of the recommendation is moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report PR 2021-004, being a report on 2020 council remuneration. Open the floor for questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Andy. And I guess my question is probably for Adam, if he can hear us. There you are. Thanks, Adam. Just under conventions and seminar, if you follow along under my, I guess, conventions and seminar, there's $631.30. And I know for a fact, because of COVID, there was no conventions or seminars that I did attend. I know I was scheduled, Mandy and Tom and I were scheduled to attend a recreation conference up in Collingwood. That was canceled due to COVID. So I'm hoping that is just needed to be refunded. Is that correct? Or?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, it had come to my attention that post me bringing this report or drafting this report and it being included on the council agenda, that it did come to light that conference was in fact canceled. I understand that we have been in contact with PRO and have gone to them for a refund for same. It is incumbent upon me now just to dig into that to ensure that we have received the funds. And if that is in fact the case, we'll make sure that the allocations are corrected, and I'll have the schedule attached to that report adjusted as needed prior to publishing beyond what's in this council package.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just from a procedural perspective then, if this is revised before publication, do we need to adopt this or approve this again?
A good question, Mayor Lennox. I think as the recommendation is drafted now, that it's just received for information. Now that we do know that there are some corrective actions required prior to being published more broadly, it's certainly something I can bring back to a future sitting of council prior to being published.
Okay, but I guess if there's no legal requirement for that, and council's happy with letting you proceed with that, maybe there's no need for that. I don't want to create additional work. I just wanted to make sure we had the necessary legal basis covered. Karen, go ahead.
You can provide direction to staff to look into the matter and amend the
Schedule.
So thank you. The schedule accordingly prior to publication.
Okay. I'm happy enough to do that. Is the rest of council okay with that approach too?
And we can certainly put it on an agenda just under council information as opposed to bringing it back for to receive, or we'll put it on the agenda just for information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Adam, for that.
My pleasure.
So with that said, then I'll call the motion. Then all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us to 5D. This is in regard to the development charges study contract award. And I'm going to say that's moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report TR 2021-005, being a report on the contract award for an update to the Township's development charges background study and bylaw. And further, that Council award the contract for an update to the Township's development charges background study at a cost of $22,625 plus applicable taxes to DFA Infrastructure International, Inc. Okay, open the floor for questions or comments, and probably I'm the one who's going to have a question, so I'll start us off. Just want to make sure I understood correctly, Adam. This is just for the update that was brought on by the changes in provincial legislation. This isn't including our 5-year renewal at this stage, correct?
Being that we are opening up the bylaw at this time, Mayor Lennox, we are going to go seek a full-blown background study and bylaw update. There have been a significant number of changes borne by Bill 108, which are fairly expansive, and myself not being the last word on development charges, we thought it fair to seek the guidance of consultation in this matter, which is why we've engaged DFA to this point, with the hopes that council will endorse the recommendation, that we could engage them for the action on this work, and really just to get us up to date and compliant within the 2-year time frame.
Okay, but then this would extend us out for a 5-year once that approval is in place.
Correct.
Okay. That was just my major question. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, then I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 6A. And I'll read the recommendation here. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report DFC 2021-002, being a report on the purchase of a new sign for the Arthur Fire Hall. And further, the council award the supply of the new digital sign to Rainbow Signs at a cost of $32,435 plus applicable taxes. And further, the council waive the requirement for a competitive process detailed within the purchasing and procurement policy for this project. Open the floor for questions or comments. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my question is in the background, it says that that the Arthur Fire Department was going to partner with the Arthur BIA. So the total cost, is the total cost in the recommendation our portion, or is that the total cost of the sign?
Okay. Chris, do you want to handle that one?
I will tag team that with Adam, but yes, that is the total cost of the sign. The recommendation. Now we were working on, and yeah, totally drawing a blank now where we were splitting that funds up with Arthur BIA. I don't know. Hopefully Adam can bail me out, but and Dale, we all worked on this together, and I'm just the one that put the report forward. But can you guys help bail me out because I'm drawing a total blank right now.
Okay.
Adam is the finance guy. I'll let you start.
Certainly, and Dale, feel free to chime in if I trip this up, but my understanding of this is part of the streetscape enhancements that is part and in conjunction with the connecting link works that are going to be proceeding into the 2021 construction year.
Correct. So $30,000 has been approved by council in that connecting link budget that Adam mentioned, to be split 50-50 with the BIA. And then with the other donation from the Whites, that would cover the $40,000 cost of the sign, or up to the $40,000 cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I thought I understood this. Now I'm confused again. So I'm going to ask Dale to so the total purchase price of the sign is $32,000 and change.
Correct.
Right? Because when you threw out 40,000, you threw me off. So then the donation is to come off of that 32,000.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, on top of the 32,000, there could be some additional costs associated with, electrical hookup and those sorts of things, Mayor Lennox. So if the cost went up as high as $40,000, we would still be covered. We'd have the $10,000 donation, and we'd still have the $30,000 donation. If the final cost of the sign comes to, say, $35,000, then the BIA and township contribution would be reduced to $25,000.
Okay, which they're splitting 50-50.
Correct.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so that to back Dale up, so that was when dealing with the provider, was we haven't been able to get in because of snow and cold to check the electrical wiring and that, to see if we had to pull new wire and stuff like that, which would hard to guess that cost. We want to make sure that cost was covered in there, that if we did have to make that change in that we were covered in it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And then I guess the other question I have is, who's going to look after the programming for that sign? The township staff going to be looking after that?
We will work with the BIA, and like with the sign, we were able to do it remotely. So we're more than happy to work with the BIA and take the lead on making sure that there's messaging on that sign. So that's, yeah, we have no problem doing that from the fire perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lisa, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, because well, as I'm on the BIA and involved with the connecting link and all of that, yes, the BIA would like to have content on that sign. And I just want to say I've known about this donation for quite some time, and it's been hard to keep it quiet. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to Linda and George for this generous donation towards this new sign. And it's good that everybody is working together, because this is working out just amazing in my mind.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Given the circumstances of COVID and all the restrictions that go along with this, and not knowing how soon this will be implemented, are we planning any kind of launch event or anything for this sign once we do have it in place, from the BIA's perspective or the fire services perspective?
I can answer that first for you, Mr. Yeah, we will be more than happy to coordinate with Dale and the BIA and that, to make sure that that's properly, and definitely the Whites, I promised them that we would recognize them and have them there for a photo opportunity and properly recognized. So we will definitely be spearheading that with everybody to make sure that gets done. Once we are all able to stand within, there's not that much room, so we can't do too many 6 feet apart in front of the fire hall there, else we're gonna have to close the road down. So we'll wait till we can get a few more people there.
We'd probably be spread down the sidewalk blocking the doors of the fire hall too, which wouldn't be acceptable either, would it?
No, that's against some fire code, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And yeah, one of my concerns was to make sure we get a proper recognition for the donation. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments then? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to 7B. And we have a recommendation here moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report Ops 2021-11 being report on the opening and dedicating as a public highway of a portion of Side Road 15 in the former Township of West Luther, and further that Council authorized the mayor and clerk to sign a bylaw opening and dedicating as a public highway a portion of Side Road 15 in the former Township of West Luther. Open the floor for questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Andy, and through you, and I guess this is probably for Matt. Just curious what needs to be done to open that 2,700 feet of Side Road 15 to allow this to happen for the farmer there.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yep, and through you, Mayor Lennox. It's really just, you know, some of the road, it's like a mud. It's probably a mud road right now, so it needs to be dug up and gravel needs to be put down, but really nothing more than that. And maybe the ditches need to be dug out a little more, but the applicant has a price from a local contractor that can do the work that we'd be very satisfied if they go through that process.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Thanks. That was going to be my kind of follow-up question, Matt. Like, what kind of standard is going to be kept on that road? And I'm sure it's probably going to be the farmer that uses it. I can't imagine it'll be a thorough way for everyone, but just wanted to make sure that it was up to some sort of a standard that was satisfactory to you and to the roads.
Yep, and through you, Mayor Lennox, it'll be like David Hill and Dale Clark will be inspecting what's going on there, but I think we're very comfortable and confident with we've been involved with the process as it relates to that customer getting a quote. So
great, thank you.
And just to your point too, Steve, I'm visualizing the section of that road right as it is, well, not right now covered in snow, but uncovered from snow. And my perception is that right now it just goes back to allow field access, so it will have to be upgraded. It is not a through road down to line 12, so it's not going to be allowing any additional traffic. It's just to serve the needs of that our roads crew and their equipment and the farmers' requirements.
Correct.
I think I drove into that road a year or so ago, and just to see how far the road went, and ended up turning around the soybean field. So
good, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to 8A. It's in regard to the street naming. And I will read the recommendation moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2021-006, being a report on naming a street in Forest View Estate subdivision in the Township of Wellington North. And further, the Council approves the street name of Colwell Court. Questions or comments? Steve, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a bit of a shout out to Jim Coffey, the thoughtfulness and the research and I guess the preparedness and background that goes into to naming these streets that are in his subdivisions. I mean, same can be said for the subdivision in Kenilworth with Paula Crescent, and now this Colwell Court is just just fantastic. I just wanted to give them a shout out and thank them for keeping the Coals and their name in the public and having the road named after them. I think it's a great nod to them and a great nod to the service that they gave during the wars for us.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And now we're on to 9A. This is in regard to the notice of commencement of the roads master action plan for the county. And the recommendation here moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the County of Wellington Notice of Commencement Road Master Action Plan. Yeah. Open the floor for questions or comments. Okay, I think you guys have heard me rattle on about this a couple times before, so I won't belabor the point. But I just did want to bring this up, that if we have council members or staff have concerns with county roads within, particularly within the boundaries of Wellington North, that we think as a council or as council and staff collaborative that need attention, need to have attention drawn to them, then we probably should talk about what those are and ask staff to draft a letter to request any changes that we see fit to county roads for consideration through the master action plan. So I just again wanted to bring this up. Does any member of council have a county road that they think needs some changes that we want to get behind recommendations to make improvements? And I know one that I'll start us off with, and that's intersection improvements at the corner here, the intersection of County Road 16 and Wellington Road 109. Because of the odd geometry of that intersection and increasing traffic on 109, I think intersection improvements at that location would be something that we should be, as a council, should be asking for. Okay, Dan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think I had mentioned before, I think Sligo Road and Highway 6 in Mount Forest also need to be addressed.
Okay.
It needs to be on their radar, I guess. I don't know. Like, what are you looking for, Andy? Are you looking for just what we think needs to be fixed, or how it should be fixed? Or are we just going to say to the county, we need this, we'd like to see this addressed, and let them deal with that?
I don't think we can prescribe necessarily what the solution is, but I think we need to clearly identify what we see the problem as.
Right.
So let me give you the example that I brought forward. That County Road 16 and Wellington Road 109 is an odd geometry because of the way the southern leg of County Road 16 comes into it, makes visibility hard. I would request that they look at making improvements to the turning radiuses, or even controlling the intersection because of the limited visibility because of the geometry, or even considering possibly a roundabout in that location. I mean, we can suggest different ideas, I think, but it's most important that we identify, the challenges, for instance, in getting across 109 on County Road 16, or if your example, Dan, of Sligo Road, and I'm assuming at Main Street, what are the challenges that are there that we would like them to address? Is it improper pedestrian access? Is it difficulty with left turn lanes from one direction to another? Is it too much time on the lights? I think we need to identify what it is we see as the issue.
Okay. All right. So how do we, I guess what exactly what you said, let's use Sligo Road and Main Street as an example. I mean, there's traffic flow, there's pedestrian flow, there's just the high volume of traffic that each way, industrial traffic, school bus traffic as well. So like those are things that I think need to be addressed at that particular intersection.
So is there long wait times at the light that are causing a problem? Is there traffic backing up that people can't get past? What's the nature of the problem, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I think it's just traffic flow in general. And I think if one car can make if you're making a left-hand turn coming south onto Sligo and you've got traffic going north on Main Street, usually only one car can get through the light, right? So it's backing up that whole flow. And when you get Longs and Vintex coming out of there, you've got all that new commercial development up there with no frills. You've got Canadian Tire, it's flow, really, is flow, traffic and pedestrian.
Okay.
I mean, we also, the township, I think at our expense, put in those crosswalk signals, audible signals. Well, you can't hear them from one side to the other if you're going north and south. Like it's too far a distance. So I don't know if that's a county issue, but those are issues that remain at that particular intersection.
Okay. So I'm not trying to belabor the point, Dan. I'm just thinking if we have specific complaints, then that's more easy for them to tackle. Like if it's wait times at the intersection for left turns, then that's one.
Okay, so that's one. That's one. Pedestrian traffic, the ability to cross those intersections safely. Left turning lanes.
Okay, just back up, sorry. So ability to cross. Now, what's the barrier to the ability to cross? Is it?
Well, on the west side of that street, if you're walking on Main Street towards north, right? That signal is hardly long enough for a person to walk across.
Okay. So the signal timing for the pedestrians?
Yeah. Truck traffic. There's a tremendous amount of truck traffic from Waste Management, Dana, Home. All those places have trucks that are coming up there. So all that plays into the flow and safety of traffic and pedestrians.
And is there a particular direction that's more troubling than others?
I don't think. I think it's just either way. I mean, I don't sit up there and watch it, but I know that anytime that I've had lots of incidents where I've seen it and been involved in just poor flow. Like I don't know. I maybe I'm just not explaining it right. Like maybe I don't know. It's like you're saying about County Road, 16 and 109. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, there's so many variables that we could put on the table. How are we going to know if which one is right?
Yeah, I just was concerned that we make sure we identify what the issues as you see it are, so that we know, what to ask them to work towards addressing.
Well, in simple terms, Andy, it's traffic flow and pedestrian flow, and that's as a result of probably poor design, traffic signal issues, lane left turn lane issues. So that's basically what I see.
Okay. Matt?
Yep. Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. I think the pedestrian flow piece is something that the county's not gonna build us sidewalks. And there is potential for this council to, put a sidewalk on the south side of Sligo between Foster and Maine, which would address maybe one of the concerns that Councillor Yake is talking about. Some of the other ones are more challenging, but if that was favorable for a future project, the county isn't going to build us sidewalks. But it has been brought to my attention before too from residents or customers that having a sidewalk between Foster and Maine would be a nice benefit.
Okay.
Is the only thing I would add to that conversation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just trying to get my head around and maybe I'm a bit thick, but I'm just trying to get my head around if it's just traffic volume, I'm not sure where we go with it. Or if it's a left turning movements are a problem, then that, maybe we consider advanced green signals or left turn lanes that are more prominent. So I'm just trying to get my head around no question there's lots of traffic volume there, but if it's just volume, I don't know where we go with it. And I'm not sure that the county is going to be part of that, other than recognizing there's volume there.
Well, I mean, that's mine. I'm bringing that one up. It doesn't seem like it's going to be, it doesn't seem like there's do we want to bring that forward to them, or do we just want to leave it alone?
Well, I mean, we could
want a discussion on county roads, so.
Yeah, we could suggest that, any redesign be considered to help facilitate traffic movement. I mean, we could leave it as open-ended as that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And, the example I used, we could leave it as open-ended as consider intersection improvements to facilitate traffic movement.
Yeah, I mean, we're not the experts.
No.
We're throwing out areas where we think there needs to be improvement. They're the experts. They're the ones that should come back and say, okay, this is what we feel we can do to help improve these areas.
Right. So if we're comfortable with that, that's we can certainly submit that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that'd be fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any others they'd like to highlight? So I'm looking at you, Mike. Would it be okay to draft up a note to submit to the county and we highlight those two intersections in those general terms and let them run with it?
Yes. We can do that. And I don't want to go too far down this road. I've had conversations with Councillor Yake about the intersection before. The volume piece is very difficult to address without us getting into a conversation about Industrial Drive or Mount Forest Drive and redirecting traffic. The county's not going to do either of those things. Those are local decisions. And Councillor Yake has raised this before. And I'm hearing from two councillors at this point, the mayor and one other councillor, about this being a major issue in Mount Forest. If it's a major issue in Mount Forest, it's not just the county that's going to need to be part of the solution, I guess is my overall answer. But absolutely, we can, as it relates to the county roads master plan, we can highlight those intersections and ask for some of their input, because you're right, Councillor Yake, they are well versed in roads, and they have responsibility for Sligo Road as well as County Road 16. So I don't think there's any harm in that at all.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So I guess all those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our items for consideration. So I guess we're on to notice of motion. Do we have any notice of motion this evening? Go ahead, Steve. You're muted, by the way, Steve.
Right, thank you.
One of the meetings I was at, they tried to charge me $5 for doing that.
Ooh.
That's a good idea.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
What would you like?
Steve would be a poor man.
I would be very poor.
What would you like your charity to be named as, Steve?
The Dan Yake Bike Fund. No, I'd like to bring a notice of motion to council that the council of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to prepare a report on municipal program of hunting nuisance coyotes on private property. And the reason I'm bringing this forward is I've had numerous residents here in Ward 4 and actually in Ward 3 as well talk to me about what we can do, what the municipality does, what our neighboring municipalities do with coyotes. There's been coyotes coming in as close as outbuildings, right up to ponds, right up to houses, right up to back decks as well. So yeah, I was hoping to forward that over to you, Mike and Karen, and maybe get a report on what our neighboring municipalities do, what the province does, or if and what we can do as a township as well. I know, it would be 7 or 8 years ago, there was a calling just on Side Road 7 East here, just between my house and Kenilworth, and there was 38 adult coyotes called. So that might be an appropriate term of action to get this going again, just for the safety of our residents.
Okay, so we'll deal with that at the next meeting, Steve. I know I've got some questions already, so we can look forward to a discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other notice of motion this evening? Okay. So we're on to community group meeting program reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on this evening? Why don't I start us off, and I'll just talk about we had our weekly, well, not always weekly, but fairly regular meeting with public health and the other mayors and CAOs across the county this morning. And we spent most of the time talking about vaccination. So this is a good news story, as I'm sure everyone recognizes. We're still not getting enough vaccine to do much vaccinating yet, but we have county clinics set up, semi-permanent clinics set up at the Fergus Sportsplex, where people will be able to go and get vaccinated when the vaccine supply increases, or if they're eligible for what's happening now. And there will be other pop-up clinics around the county. In fact, I think there's one coming to Mount Forest on Friday, I believe, of this week. So it's right now they're still focused on phase 1 people, who are those who are healthcare, and I don't have the terms exactly right, I apologize for that, but healthcare workers, people who are caring for those in congregate care settings, and those who are over 80 years of age will be eligible. And the health unit has set up an app that you can access from their website for those people who are 80 years of age and over to register. That doesn't mean the vaccine is here and they're going to have an appointment tomorrow, but they need to register for it so that when the vaccine does become available, public health can contact them and get them set up with an appointment at either the clinic in Fergus or one of the mobile clinics that's going to be moving around probably Mount Forest and Palmerston here in the north. So if you have friends, neighbors, family that will qualify for the over 80, please help them get registered. They really are leaning towards the online registration tool, because to manage the number of phone calls that would be required to register all of our residents over time is really too big a task. So they've created this online registration. So please direct people to that. If they don't have a cell phone or a computer, maybe a family member or a friend can register for them. They need to have either an email or a cell phone that can be texted to get notification to let them know when they're eligible to get their vaccination. So we're still talking about the phase 1 people, again, the healthcare workers and those over 80. But as this rolls out and we get more vaccine, this will roll out to younger ages, and the expectation is that this registration tool will be used for those groups as well. So anybody you're talking to, please let them know about that, and stay tuned. I'm sure volunteers will be needed with some of these clinics as the numbers ramp up to help control traffic, give people directions, those types of things. So I know I'm kind of hoping to help with a little bit of that, and if you have time, I'm sure the help would be appreciated. I know our staff are planning to make a contribution in that area as well, so I think that's good news for our residents and the community as a whole. So, and if anybody has any questions about that, I will do my best to answer them or direct you to where you might find the answer. Sherry, go ahead.
So with regards to the volunteering for the vaccination, the traveling vaccinations and things like that, will there be a portal or will it be posted on our website? How can we engage potential volunteer organizations or citizens that want to help out with that?
So I think we're still at the early stages. I don't know, Mike, do you have any information more about that than I do?
Not really at this point. As Mayor Lennox indicated, the volumes at this point, that even when we host a pop-up clinic, they will be handled by public health staff, and some of county staff are supporting them. They won't need additional volunteers at this point. The thinking is, Councillor Burke, as we ramp up and we're doing more vaccinations that includes more population, the general population, that there may be a need for volunteers at that point. But I would also suggest, and this is information that maybe the mayor hasn't seen yet either, public health is working with McMaster University, some of the other colleges and stuff, nursing students, things like that, those natures, to ramp up the vaccination. So we're not really clear at this point how many volunteers will be required, if any, to be completely honest. But once things ramp up, we'll have a better sense of that. And yeah, how to engage volunteers will be part of that, but we're certainly not at that point at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like the potential, they believe, is at, say, Fergus with the semi-permanent setup, that they might be able to vaccinate as many as 5,000 people a day. Well, if they get to those kind of numbers, they will need some help with traffic control and making sure people know where to go and those types of things, which I think is what, you know, local volunteers are probably best suited for. I believe they'll have lots of people available through public health or healthcare workers or students to jab people in the arm. It's a question of, you know, making sure they know where to go to sit for their waiting period, know where to park, know those types of things. So I think those are the kind of volunteers that may be needed as we go forward.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, from my experience listening to Wyatt talk about vaccinating, as some of you know, Wyatt he was a nursing student. Now he's passed his registration exam. So he's actually a nurse now. But when over Christmas and in the new year, he was still technically a student, and everyone vaccinating when he was at Grand River Hospital was a student. So they were just recruiting people from the students from the college and the university to get people through quickly. And he complained, he said he did so many needles that his hand was sore at the end of the day, and he was coming home and rubbing his hand and stuff. Poor kid. But anyway, this is a mom brag moment.
Yeah, he'll be able to brag to his children about, the back in the days of 2021, I vaccinated so many thousand people.
Yeah, and he just had another COVID test today because his unit, he's actually in the psychiatric unit now, and he was in psychiatric intensive care, and they've have cases in there, so they're on an outbreak again. But yeah.
Any other comments or questions about that? Okay. Anybody else have any community group? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments on a couple of weeks ago. We had 2 weeks ago tomorrow night, we had a hospital board meeting, very lengthy hospital board meeting, but very informative as well. And as you can imagine, most of the meeting was spent talking about COVID and how it's being handled in our area and how it's being handled in many other areas. And we know, we've all heard the issues with the ongoing issues with the healthcare system during this pandemic. And so we did get a lot of very good, useful information. And I know it's been said thousands of times, but like, I just want to say, we all just need to say thank you to the frontline workers that have been putting their heart and soul into keeping people safe. And, Councillor Hearns talked about her son who's working in the healthcare system. And I'm sure he's certainly worn out and had lots of bad days as this thing goes on. So again, whenever you get an opportunity, not only especially to our local people, if you know a nurse or a doctor or a PSW or an ambulance driver or anybody, police officer, firefighter, they deserve our utmost thanks. The board has recently approved a new 3-year strategic plan, which is nice to see. And there's been good progress. I think Andy asked me a week or so ago about the hospital progress at the hospital. We're expecting, we hope, substantial completion of the new emergency room in April and the ambulatory care in May. So the project is moving along. We're not too far from either one of those dates. And so that's going to be a good news story. And I think they are trying to arrange a tour for the directors this week. So we may get a look, kind of a firsthand look at what actually has been going on there. So I don't know, Dale, as chair of the board, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, but that's just a quick update on what's been going on up at the hospital.
Thanks, Dan. I know we're all eagerly awaiting the improvements and seeing what that looks like. So, Dale, did you have something you wanted to add?
I really don't, Mayor Lennox, other than thank you, Councillor Yake, for giving that update. And I would certainly echo Councillor Yake's comments about all the great work our healthcare workers have been doing to keep our community and our residents safe. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Dan on that? Okay, any other community group program report anybody has? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to say, Councillor McCabe, this is my checkbook. I accept your challenge to donate to the Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Just supporting local is so important at this time. It's just as important as shop local, buy local, because we need these volunteer groups once we once we get out of this. They're very important and vital to our community as well. So I just ask everybody to support these groups as they move forward, trying to look for ways creatively to raise funds. So thank you for that. And also just wanted to note that on the meetings and announcements, we were missed. There's an aquatics meeting again tomorrow night at 7. We're going to be talking about some different fundraising ideas, predominantly fundraising ideas with regards to the next phase, which is the pool.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
I'm in on the
Dan?
donation too, Steve.
Good. Glad to hear it.
So you said you were matching each of us, right, Steve?
I'm already in.
Anybody else have any community reports to do tonight? Lisa, go ahead.
I can give you a brief report. There were chamber minutes and stuff in there, but I can, the Mount Forest Chamber, I just want to say, with their new executive, they're off to a great start. They've done strategic planning. They have committees and lots of new ideas. So I have great hopes for the Mount Forest Chamber. And we did have a short Arthur Chamber meeting. The minutes were in there, but it was extremely short. We did a joint with the BIA. So thank you to Councillor McCabe and Mayor Lennox for joining us for that joint meeting, just trying to get everyone all on the same page, and did a little bit of talking about the Connecting Lake project and such. And we have finalized the design, as you saw in the minutes earlier, for the curb extension. Did also want to say, and I was going to download it to my computer and screen share it for you, but the BIA has designed their logo. And we've talked about it for a while, and it's we're pretty excited about it. So you'll see it on all the letterhead going forward.
Okay, thank you. Any others tonight? Okay, I guess that brings us to bylaws, and we have a few of them tonight. So we have a recommendation here, moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that bylaw number 15-21, 16-21, 17-21, 18-21, 19-21, and 20-21 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Any questions and comments on any of those bylaws? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And I think we are on to a closed meeting session. So we have a closed meeting this evening. And we have a recommendation moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 9:08 p.m. that is closed to the public under subsection 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, specifically to deal with personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. So we'll be dealing with report DFC 2021-001, which is regard to job description and classification. We'll deal with the review of the closed session minutes, and then we'll rise and report from the closed session. So anybody still joining us here, we will go into closed, which will be closed to the public. Any actions that come out of the closed session will be posted in our minutes when they're completed following the meeting. Thanks for joining us this evening, and I will call the motion to move us into closed. And all those in favor? That's carried. We're in closed, so we'll just take a couple minutes to get the logistics sorted out.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm going to grab a glass of water quick.
Okay.
I have all council on. I have a fire chief and Chanda HR, and that should be it. So I'm going to hopefully lock the meeting. Hold on.
You're still recording too, Karen.
Thank you. Let me stop that first.